Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sebastian, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we'll give you guys the first perspective on things and how we see them. And folks, we got a hell of a show for y'all today. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. So, guys, look. As you guys know, mayoral candidate, the new mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, made a lot of headlines after he won the race to become the mayor of New York City, and he had a very fiery speech that inspired a lot of people. A lot of people were calling it one of the best speeches they've heard in a while. Although he was a controversial figure, some people call him a socialist or whatever, that still didn't stop over 50% of New Yorkers voting for a 33 or 34-year-old as to be the mayor of New York City. And as somebody who grew up in New York, went to junior high school and all of that, lived in the Bronx, lived in Yonkers, spent a little bit of time in New Jersey. You know, I consider myself a New Yorker. I can understand some of the reasons why people decided that it was time to make a change, because New York City had become absolutely outrageous in terms of a place to live. It was just too damn expensive, and the cost of living was out of control. Absolutely out of control. Last time I was just there earlier this year in May for my sister's graduation. And I couldn't believe how expensive New York City was. I mean, I really could not believe it. Outrageously expensive. Everything is expensive. And I spent half of the time just complaining about everything to the co-founder here, Marco. He was also there in New York. And we're just talking like, this is outrageous, right? It's absolutely outrageous. So something had to be done. So while a lot of people were excited for his victory, a lot of people were saying, "Oh no, this is a horrible thing for New York. New York City's lost its way. New York City is about to fall into the ocean. It's over." And one of the people that decided to go out there and step into the fray and voice his opinions was none other than Stephen A. Smith himself. Now, one would have thought that Stephen A. Smith would have kind of learned his lesson after the debacle that he found himself in after the Jasmine Crockett saga last month. But no, Stephen A. Smith said, no, I haven't had enough. And I think it's time for me to step even further. So what happened? Stephen A. Smith, fresh off of the news of Zohran becoming the mayor, he decided to react to it on the Stephen A. Smith show, and he absolutely went off on him. So for those of you who didn't hear those comments, I want to play it for you now, and I'm going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say here originally.
I'm going to tell you why I'm not happy about it. I like Mamdani. I'm looking forward to interviewing him. He's promised to be on this show. But I'm very, very concerned about some of the things that he said. I'm very concerned about what he once said about defunding the police. I'm calling 911. I'm being real with you. I'm calling 911. That's what I'm doing. I don't want to see less police officers. I want to see more police officers. I heard him talk about mental health experts in the subway system. I don't care about that. I want cops in the subways in New York City, where I was born and raised. Born in the Bronx, raised in Queens. That's what I want. I want to hear about no damn mental health experts in subways. Nah, I'm not trying to hear that, okay? 2% tax on the rich. Okay, fine. 11.5% capital gains tax. On its face, okay, fine. Free buses. Free grocery stores in each borough? Really? Really think that's going to work? Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a crossroads in this nation. And there's no way to slice it. And the level of vitriol that you see amongst the American citizen is because, God forbid, that you have a difference of opinion. It's not enough to agree. You know, people have to be disagreeable. And you have to be selfish if you're a person that's rich, that's making money, and you don't want to pay your fair share of taxes. Well, when you think about the billionaires in the state, in the city of New York, they make up about 48% in terms of the amount of taxes that they dole out compared to the average American, compared to the rest of New Yorkers. And if you're talking about raising their taxes while doing these other things, you're making New York unattractive, not just for residents, but for businesses. And if you make it unattractive for businesses and you compromise the ability to be the capitalist that these people are, then they take their businesses elsewhere. So the money that they paid on their homes or in rent, they move out of the city or the state. businesses follow. And then ultimately the tax burden falls on to New Yorkers out there, which means that rent freezes, which is also something that Mamdani pushed. Is that really going to be plausible? Are you really going to be able to freeze rent? Or are you going to end up hiking it because you don't have enough people here to pay it? Tax revenue, where you getting that from? See, these are all the kind of things that we have to connect the dots and ask ourselves, 1 + 1, does it equal 2? Is it really plausible that these things are going to happen? According to Mayor Hochul, 90% of the stuff Mamdani said he can't do on his own. He got to come through her in the state legislature in order to get it done. Is he going to be able to do that? What level of support is he going to have outside of young whippersnappers out there who love him and are so in love with his personality and everything else that they didn't really dot the I's and cross the T's and look at actual policies and the kind of effect that's going to have on New Yorkers? That's what I'm worried about. I hope I'm wrong. Because talking to him, I liked him. I'm looking forward to sitting down and interviewing with him. I just want to know where the money coming from. See, I count. Okay? I count. And I can't tell you how many young teenagers, it could be daughters, it could be nieces and nephews, it could be friends and family members or relatives of folks along that age gap. And you're asking the same question. And you know what you come up with? The people who love Mamdani the most are not people who pay bills every day. I'm not saying that applies to everybody. I'm not applying that. But they certainly not people that pay bills every day all the time. You don't see business owners clamoring to support them. I'm just saying these things are important to bring up. Because there's going to be a divide that takes place. Remember, Mamdani's ascension and his win in the mayoral election in New York last night is entirely different from what supposedly transpired in New Jersey with Mikey Sherrill beating Citarelli for the gubernatorial seat, and of course in Virginia, where this lady Sears ultimately lost to Abigail Spanberger. By the way, I think Spanberger and Sherrill were roommates at one time or another. Winsome Earl Sears, she lost by convincingly, to say the least. But the reason I bring that up is because their campaign was a bit different than Zohran Mamdani. They were talking about affordability issues just like he was. But they were also a bit more pragmatic in their thinking. They weren't talking about free grocery stores and free bus rides. They weren't talking about those things. They were talking about centrist kind of policies that would ingratiate themselves with the vast majority of American citizens in their respective states, because guess what? They recognize that's where the meat of the electorate lives. Not on the fringes with extreme progressivism. Not on the fringes with the MAGA right. 85% of the population lives there. That's where I live. That's why I'm on POTUS. That's where we live. We ain't veering one way or the other to the extreme because we understand, it is about affordability. But it's also about the economy. It's also about safety in the streets. And when you're talking about the combination of a free bus rides or free grocery stores, and oh, by the way, less police, or at least not more police officers, and not prioritizing law enforcement in the streets of a city, of a state, of the United States of America, you got a problem.
So you heard what Smith had to say, right? So initially when we did the video, I was a bit trepidatious about what the reaction was going to be, because we hadn't produced a show like that on this channel before, right? And for a very long time, I'd said, look, I'm going to stay away from politics. It's something that I find to be very divisive. But given at the times that we're in, a lot of things were happening around me and across the world. And I was having an opinion about it in my personal life. And I said, hey, you know what? Let me just share some of my thoughts with our audience. Maybe some people disagree, some people agree, whatever it is. But at least let me just get some of this stuff off of my chest. So I woke up this morning, because I didn't really get a chance to kind of go through the comments or what people were saying yesterday. But I woke up this morning, and one of the comments, because on Chrome, when you have a YouTube channel, I'm sure some of you that have YouTube channels know this, the notification will pop up that somebody left a comment. So you click on it, and then it takes you to the video, and you start. So I then started to read through some of the comments of what viewers said on the video that we produced. And let me tell you something. New Yorkers were going off on Stephen A. Smith. And I want to read through some of the comments of what people said. The video now is beginning to pick up a lot of steam right now. It has about 500 comments. So let's get through some of what he had to, some of what viewers had to say. It says, one guy says, I'm 57 years old. Smith hasn't learned that you don't have to and probably shouldn't comment on every effing thing. He truly has gone from reporting the news to wanting to be the news. He wants people talking about him no matter what. Another viewer said, why do people take Stephen A. Smith seriously? He is a clown. Another viewer said, can we all agree to boycott this fool and maybe he can be canceled? Another guy says, Stephen A. Smith is such a fool. It's not even worth listening to. Another viewer said, countdown to Stephen A. Smith's apology. Another viewer said, Stephen Snake Smith. It just kept going on. Another viewer said, I'm just tired of Stephen A. This is part of the grift. Another guy said, does he think 50% of New Yorkers are stupid? We knew what we were voting for. It kept on going on. I don't know why people are still subscribed to ESPN and Stephen A. Smith. Another one said, Stephen A. Smith is the one that should stop talking politics, mostly because he goes back and forth. Another viewer said, thank you for covering this. Everyone is quiet about this mistake by Stephen A. Smith. He is very sloppy when it comes to his political opinions for someone with aspirations to run for president. Another viewer said, he still hasn't learned his lesson. Another viewer said, I love Mamdani's speech and listened to it multiple times. Well done. It didn't stop there. I want to keep reading because people really let their feelings be known. Another viewer said, I'm a New Yorker. I live here. I live it. Very expensive. The cost of living doesn't match the economy here. Another guy said, Stephen A. Smith needs to stay out of politics. And then there was another guy that left a very, very detailed comment where he was talking about a situation in which his daughter, who lives in New York City, I believe pays $5,000 a month on rent. And I think she has a great job. Congratulations to him. And he was describing a time that he went to New York and was talking about just how outrageously expensive it is. And people just kept on going on and on and on and on about it. What are my thoughts about this? Stephen A. Smith was born in Queens, New York, right? And I think what has happened is Stephen A. Smith is one of those people that seems to have forgotten where they came from. Do you know that there's some rich people who were once poor that become rich but never forgot what it was like to be poor? They still had the ability to put themselves in the shoes of those that were less fortunate than them. Do you know that there also are rich people like that? Do you know that there's some rich people that can say, man, I'm doing very well in life, but I understand that that's not the reality of other people. And sometimes it has nothing to do with hard work. Sometimes it has to do with the circumstances you're born into, right? You're born into a certain neighborhood, you're born into a certain social class, and you got to fight your way up. And sometimes people make it and others don't. But there seems to be this callousness and this cold-heartedness to some of the things that Stephen A. Smith is saying. And now you have his fellow New Yorkers calling him to the carpet and saying, hey, listen, buddy, you don't seem to know what the heck you're talking about here. You don't even seem to. Okay, I want to quickly refer to Mamdani's website, because Stephen A. Smith said, amongst many of the things that he said wrong, was that he wants to give free food, free grocery stores, when in fact, he said nothing of the sort. Let me read. This is from his website. We'll put it up on this section of affordability. City-owned grocery stores. Food prices are out of control. Nearly 9 in 10 New Yorkers say the cost of groceries is rising faster than their income. Only the very wealthiest aren't feeling squeezed at the register. As mayor, Zohran will create a network of city-owned grocery stores focused on keeping prices low, not making a profit. without having to pay rent or property taxes. They will reduce the overhead and pass on the savings to shoppers. They will buy and sell at wholesale prices, centralize warehousing and distribution, and partner with local neighborhoods on products and sourcing. With New York City already spending millions of dollars to subsidize private grocery stores operators, we should redirect public money to a real public option. Then he spoke about free buses. He spoke about no cost childcare. Who would argue against that? Who would argue against that? Now, if you have the resources to pay for your kids to have, top-notch childcare, then by all means go for it. But why would anybody be against that? Wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be better for the overall good if kids are being raised properly and getting the proper not nutrition, but the proper mentorship and care growing up as kids, so we have a better overall safer society? Wouldn't that be you would think that would be a good thing, right? You would think. And then he made up this thing about, New Yorkers are going to run away. Right? The New Yorkers are going to run away. Let me read the part where he says paying for the agenda, taxing corporations and the 1%. Zohran has a plan to bring down the cost of living through city-owned grocery stores, universal child care, and other bold proposals, and he knows exactly how to pay for it too. Zohran's revenue plan will raise the corporate tax rate to match New Jersey's 11.5%, bringing in $5 billion, and he will tax the wealthiest 1% of New Yorkers, those who are earning above $1 million annually, a flat 2% tax. Zohran will also implement common sense procurement reform and endless non-bid contracts, hire more tax auditors, and crack down on fine collection from corrupt landlords to raise an additional $1 billion. So he gave his method of which he's going to pay. Is it going to work? I don't know. I guess we have to wait and see. He also spoke about, the landlords just hiking up rent prices and all of that. So to me, look, whatever it is Stephen A. Smith felt like he was saying, the vast majority of New Yorkers disagree with him. You know why? Because these people have their feet on the earth. They have their foot on the ground. And to me, it's insane to me that a guy that came from an impoverished background, made it to the top of the sports world, is so cold-hearted about others who are less fortunate than him being having programs in place to help them live a better life. I don't understand that. As I said from the beginning of this show, there are rich people who come from impoverished circumstances that when they become rich, they make it their goal to try to help their community. That's their goal. Stephen A. Smith's number one talking point is, how much money can I make? Money, 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 money. How much money can I make? How much money can I? That's his whole talking point. He's not even talking about, let me figure out a way to build a school. Let me figure out a way to do this. Let me figure out a way to do. No, it's just about how much money I can make. And I want to get to this last point about New Yorkers are going to run away. No, who told you this? Run away and go where? Business people are leaving New York to go where? Most of the people that have their businesses set up in New York, they're going to close shop because of a 2% tax increase or because they raise corporate taxes a little bit. Don't you already know that taxes are high in New York City anyway? Do you see people running away? Who told you this? But the fact of the matter is, New York City is outrageously expensive. It is. There's no two ways about it. And most people that live there can't afford to handle the cost of living there. They can't. And it has nothing to do with, these guys are not working hard. That's a very simplistic way of looking at the world. That, I did well, so the reason this next guy isn't doing well is because he's not working hard. Do you realize that the world is just a tad bit more complicated than that? Sometimes it's not just about working hard. Sometimes it's your circumstances. Sometimes it's your connections. Sometimes it's where you live. Like, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? So I think he completely missed the mark. He's in the minority because the people that would be in opposition to his point of view lost. And in all of this hollering and screaming, Stephen A. Smith ain't leaving New York City. He's not leaving New York City. If he lived there full time, you think he's going to leave New York because they increased his taxes by 2%? Really? 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 Like, what are we talking about here? What exactly are we talking about here? I just think that's absurd. It's absurd. It's absurd. Like, so I think he completely missed the mark. On top of that, he didn't really seem to know what the hell he was talking about. at all. At all. So I think you pretty much heard what New Yorkers had to say. You pretty much heard what New Yorkers had to say. And I'm amazed at all the people that have never lived in New York, have no plans of traveling to New York, will never travel to New York. All of a sudden, they have all of these comments. Oh, New York is not going this. How New York is not going there. New York, like, what are you talking about? Most of y'all have never even been to New York City. But y'all got all of these comments to say what's going to happen to New York and this and this and this and this and this and this. Please, like, what are we talking about here? New York will be just fine without you. Okay, we'll be just fine without you. These are my thoughts, whatever you guys think. And also, by the way, if you enjoyed this topic and you're interested in videos like this, check out the video we just produced about two days ago, reacting to this first. When it first came out, we're going to pin that in the comment section below. So make sure you guys go check that out. We catch you guys on the next show. I'm out. Peace.